What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. I'm skipping the intro because I got to keep it funky like two armpits and get right into it. Now, Trevor Noah had a pretty interesting video in regards to talking about the death of the young man in Minnesota. I don't have his name right now. I'm going to be doing a video on him later. But he asked, where are the good apples? We always hear about the bad apples, but where are the good apples? Well, this brings in a story of Cariol Horne. She was a former police officer in Buffalo, New York. She was fired for intervening when a white officer attempted to choke a black suspect while he was handcuffed. So, that story actually happened back in November 1st, 2006. So, they go to deal with a man and female, disturbance at the house. And as they're getting him out of the house, he's handcuffed, but the officer, George, I can't pronounce his last name, proceeded to choke the guy. So she intervenes and stops him. They get into an altercation, other officers break it up, and she ultimately loses her job 2 years later. Now, skip ahead to 2021. She is now being allowed to get her full pension because they fired her. She wasn't going to get paid, no pension, anything, even though she stopped this man from potentially killing an unarmed handcuffed suspect. And even the person who was arrested, his name was Mac, said he was choking me, I was handcuffed. He hears her, Cariol Horne, say, "You're killing him, Greg." And she reached over and tried to grab his hand around my neck. He sued the 5 officers involved in his arrest in 2012. Now this is 6 years later. A jury found no wrongdoing in a ruling of 5-1. The juror who sided with Mac was the only black person on the jury. Now, the officer Greg sued Cariol Horne in 2011. Stating that she had defamed his character. And a judge found that Horne's lawyer made 8 statements that were considered defamatory and false, including the claim that Horne saved the life of a suspect who was already in handcuffs and was being choked out by Officer Gregg. Now, if you listen to the timelines I gave you, that was in 2006 when all of this happened. Now, in 2009, there was an incident in which he used unlawful and unreasonable force against 4 black teenagers, including slamming their heads into a car. Ward said knowledge was not made available during the original determinations in this case by both the hearing officer and this court. Now, that was 2009 when the incident happened. He was sentenced in 2018 and was only given 4 months in federal prison. Now, the original incident where she stopped him was in 2006. She gets fired, not him. And that was in 2008. A year later, in 2009, he proceeds to beat and use unlawful and unreasonable force against 4 black teenagers. If they would have done their jobs, I'm talking about the police department, if they would have done their jobs, got him out of there, those 4 black teenagers would not have been harmed. But the sad thing is that it took him 9 years to sentence this man, and he only got 4 months in federal prison. You want to know where the good apples are? They're either being fired or going through problems because they decided to break the blue wall of silence. This is something that has to be addressed, because the problem is, a lot of times you'll hear about cops that try to speak on these situations and they run into a lot of problems. I've read stories where cops talked about how they lost their jobs or they were put in danger and all these different things because they decided to tell the truth. You see what I'm saying? And let's see what else. Let me look, make sure I got everything in here. So they did an investigation on her, right? With that internal investigation, and this is why she was fired. Let me make sure I got this right, because I'm trying to do all of this from different articles. So she was fired because they did a internal investigation, and they said that she had violated 11 of 13 of these situations, which led to her ultimately being fired. Now, she was let go in 2008. and it's 2021. So that's 13 years later. Yes, 13 years later. But for 15 years, she's been just trying to figure out her life. They even created a law that goes back up to 20 years to look at something where a police officer intervenes to stop the use of objectively unreasonable force by a fellow officer. But you have to go back and look because they'll punish the people who actively try to stop a situation like a George Floyd. Like, think about it like this. If one of those cops would have stopped that man in that moment, think about what could have happened. They might have lost their job for whatever reason, even though they were stopping this man from using unlawful and unreasonable force. Now, that's just what happened recently, but hers happened in 2006. We're talking about 15 years later. And I'm happy that she was able to get her full pension because she deserved it. She was a hero. And it's a shame that the law enforcement that she served for 19 years turned their back on her and did her that way. So when people ask where are the good cops or where is the this or why is there a blue wall of silence, that to me is a gang. That's some gang mentality stuff. If somebody's breaking the law, whether they're a cop or not, they have to be held accountable as well. You're a police officer. Your job is to arrest bad guys. And if they're working with y'all and they're a bad guy, they're not a bad guy. They have to be held accountable. It doesn't make any sense to me that this would even be an argument or a discussion. You see what I'm saying? So, like I said, I'm happy they finally acknowledged what she did as a cop, but then as a human being. But the fact that she had to wait 15 years for justice shows how broken the system is. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And once again, thank you for watching the Neg Entropy Chronicles. I'm going to be dropping more content. Be on the lookout for the rest of it, but like, comment, share, and subscribe. All right, everybody? Peace.